Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. For this video I'm going to go through how I sculpted the parts for the hamster commission I got. So a little look at what I have sculpted. The eyes are made of Sculpey as well, but I'll go into more detail about that very shortly. And I've used Sculpey Original for the bulk of it, and all of the parts that are going to be showing and needed like a beigey flesh colour. I used Sculpey Original. I just prefer working with Sculpey Original. Super Sculpey was the other one, sorry. And yeah, I'll go into some details on how I sculpted. So if you want to know how I sculpted this, then just keep watching. Alrighty, so here's a little look at what all of the materials that I'm going to be using. So like I said, the Sculpey Original and the Super Sculpey, and you can see the Super Sculpey is the beige colour and the Sculpey Original is the white colour. Like I said, I like to use the Sculpey Original because I like working with softer clay, and this is all been kneaded and ready to start sculpting. Sometimes it's a bit crumbly, so you'll need to knead your polymer clay. So I'm using a aluminium core for this particular doll for a couple of reasons. It is a lot lighter when the doll is put together, and it also helps the Sculpey to cook a little faster as well. So if you have a solid Sculpey piece, chances are that it won't actually cure in the middle, and you need to make it a bit smaller, and it's also cost effective as well because you're not using as much material. So I'm just covering the aluminium ball with the Sculpey Original just to bulk out where I want how I want the face to look. And then when I'm happy with a rough sort of sketch, I guess, I then go ahead and add the eyes. So for these eyes, I ended up changing them because I wasn't happy with the way it was looking. So these initial eyes were made from cabochons, but I wasn't happy with the way it was sitting. And with hamsters, they have like eyes that sort of protrude a little bit. So using these cabochons wasn't giving off that effect, so I ended up sort of playing around with it for a little while and then decided that I wasn't happy with it, so I sort of ripped them out, but I'll go into more detail that in later on. And for the mouth area, I'm adding that Super Sculpey in the beige colour, because this is going to be something that it will be a little bit visible when I finish adding the faux fur. So it goes for the nose and the mouth area. A little handy tip, if you're adding things to Sculpey Original and you're finding it too soft and it's going out of shape, just pop it in the oven for a little while, maybe 10 minutes, just to firm up a little bit, and then it won't be so soft when you add the harder Super Sculpey. It's something that I did find here, but considering I wasn't really happy with the way it was turning out in the first place, I didn't bake it because I knew I would change it anyway. So I'm adding the little mouth area, like the little mouth things with the Super Sculpey, and I'm just comparing it to a reference image that I have over on my computer. And the reference images are basically like a front view of a head and then the side view of a head, just so I can get a all-round look at what the actual animal will look like. It's a good idea to have a few references up, just because not one hamster all looks the same. So I usually have a couple of references up in Google, and I can just scroll through and get an idea, and then I can sort of do something in between, but I always have the main references up just to compare my dolls. So the majority of the rest of the work would be bulking out. I kind of just ended up using most of the Sculpey Original, apart from the ears, obviously. The little tool that I'm using is just a little like a hook tool thing that I use for carving out little details around the eyes and stuff. So I did quite a bit of work on these eyes to see if I actually liked the way it was turning out, but I didn't. So yeah, I ended up changing the whole eye area. Now for the ears, I generally shape the ears around my thumb. That way it gives a nice good curve when you push it into your thumb. And then you can sort of manipulate it any way you like and have any sort of curve or point or anything like that. So that's a good handy tip. If you don't want to put it on your thumb, you can get like a bigger tool, a wooden tool or something that has a little curve on it. That would work quite well as well. I just find with the tool that it might leave some indentations from the edge, unless you have a large round tool. That would work quite well as well. I know that Sculpey sells large round tools, and you can get a whole pack of them in different sizes. And again, going back to the eyes, I'm working around, just trying to figure it out. You can clearly tell that I wasn't happy with the way it was turning out in the first place. I thought it started looking a little bit like guinea pig-like or rat-like or something like that. I know there's a fine line between the way hamsters look and rats look. So it was a little bit more difficult to capture the hamster look rather than it looking just like a rat. So again, I tried to do all sorts of different things. And eventually started adding some fur texturing around to see if I was happy with the way that turned out, because usually when I add the fur texture, I can get a better sense of what the doll will actually look like, and I'd be more happy when things are looking a little bit more finished. But nope, I still wasn't happy with the way it was looking. Alrighty, so this is where I decided to gouge the eyes out, and I just flicked them out using my little pin tool, because I wanted to keep the little indentation of where the eyes originally were, so I could easily put them back in to the right place. So I'm going to put them aside and probably use them in a different doll. And these new eyes that I sculpted, I just rolled out little balls of black Sculpey and baked them in the oven. I thought they worked quite well, and I'm just cleaning up the area to make sure everything is ready to go. So I just sort of placed them into the socket and using my reference pictures to make sure that they're going into the right place. And these ones are really good because they're actually a round ball and they stick out a lot more than the cabochons. So insane. So yes, I highly recommend, if you're doing just plain black eyes, to roll out some little balls of Sculpey. I think they work quite well, especially when you put some gloss over them. They again look like real good, nice eyes. And then I'm just going ahead and just adding some more texture around the eye area, because it needs to be built up a little bit because they stick out a little bit more than the original ones. I also just manoeuvred the ears a little bit to change the ear direction and just making sure that they're properly embedded into the Sculpey. So that is ready to be baked. And then now we can move on to the actual little tiny feet. So these are little feet that I originally sculpted. Was a little bit of a test before I actually went ahead and sculpted the rest of them. So I'll go through how I sculpted these. So I've just measured out equal bits of clay, 4 bits of clay, and then I can sort of manipulate them into sculpting a little feet. So I'm using a little pin tool just to mark out where I want the actual little toes, and then I can go in with my little hoop tool and just refine it a little bit more and subtract any of the clay that I think needs to be gone, just to carve out all those little extra little details of the hamster feet. So I wanted the hamster feet to be close together because I didn't want them to be a chance of snapping in transit or anything like that. So I made them little solid hands, but also needing them to be thick enough at the end to attach to the ball and socket armature. Ball and socket armatures are available in my shop, and I also have a video on my Patreon on how to make them as well. So I got a little tip to make little nails is getting some tweezers and just pinching the actual the clay. I think that works really well. So again, a little look at the sculpted part. I obviously haven't refined it because I'm going to be covering it in faux fur anyway, so there's no need to be too neat about it. The doll video will be coming out next week, so you can keep your eye out for that. And also have some extra images over on my Patreon. It's in the description box. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me. I really do appreciate it. If you want to check out my Instagram and Facebook, it's at Creatures of Nat, and also my shop at creaturesofnat.com. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye!